Hi everyone, how are you? I hope you're doing great. So today I want to do something that I haven't done in the podcast, and I pray that you will stay with me and also understand where I'm coming from when I say the things that I'm about to say, uh, because we need to speak these things and we need people to hear them, and they also need to be recorded so that in the coming generations it shall be said that these things were said. First of all, let me say that once in a while, as God allows me, I give out I give out prophecies for the year, for the month, for whatever purpose that the Lord desires of me. I avail myself and I ask Him, to give me a word for the year, a word for the next 2, 3 years or 4 years, or whatever time um, He sees fit, or whatever time He desires for me to see. Now, I want to give a prophecy, and I want to, not just one, but I want to give some prophecies that I received some years back. And the reason why I'm doing this right now is because I want to continue with these prophecies because they're already in continuity and they are also getting fulfilled even as we speak right now at this moment. And so I want to give these prophecies about different nations in Africa and also my nation of Kenya. But also, I want to give, a few things that are going to happen in the world. And how I pray that even as we listen to this, we will begin to understand what has been happening. Now, let me first of all make a confession that the prophecies that I'm about to give are not new. These are things that I've spoken in the past. I have spoken I posted them on Facebook, and I also posted the same video on YouTube, so you can go check it. But this is the first time I'm doing this on this podcast, and I felt that it is important for me to do it on this podcast, so that those who are not on Facebook and you're not a fan of YouTube or you don't use a lot of YouTube, you can still be on the same page about in regards to these prophecies. Now, let me take you back to the year 2019, because that's when I got some of these things. Sorry, but I'm going to talk about them. And at the same time, even as I talk about them, I will also do my best to begin to discuss what I got for this year 2021, which is pretty much a continuation of what I got for 2020 last year. All right. So my desire is that you stay with me on this so that I'm able to put together, or I'm able to put my mind together for your sake and for my own sake, if I may use that, if I may say that. All right. So first of all, it is very important for us to understand uh, what prophecy is all about. Number one, prophecy is not about scaring people. It's not about making you be afraid. It's not about um, saying things that are bad, okay? But prophecy is pretty much warnings, just telling people what's going to happen and also giving direction, telling people what to do so that these things can happen or to make sure that these things don't happen. So a lot of people, when they hear the word prophecy, they begin to be worried. Some people begin to be skeptical about it, and I totally agree. And I have no problem with skepticism, and I have no problem with criticism. It's something that I think in life we got to be used to it. We got to learn how to deal with criticism and people uh, who don't agree with us. And not everyone will always agree with you. And so you've got to be 100% sure that whatever it is you are doing it for God. All right, those are the most important lessons to learn, that whatever you're doing, you must be 100% convinced that you're doing it for God. Because then at the end of the day, What matters most is not what people think about you, though that is also important, what people think about you, but it is what God thinks about you that is a priority. You are not an actor of an audience of people, you're an actor of an audience of one. And that is the thing that has really kept me going this long in life, in ministry. I gave my life to Christ when I was 10 years old and began preaching when I was 12 and began prophesying when I was 14. And so I've been criticized, I've been talked about, you know, but also at the same time, people have prayed for me. There are those who have believed in me and believed in what I say. And, what I have to do in my life is to believe that Jesus Christ is speaking and that God is speaking. And this is what God wants me to say to the people. And so, as long as I have that clear in my mind, and as long as you have that clear in your mind, then you're going to do a lot of stuff in life. But if you allow people to stop you, people's opinions and people's comments to stop you, then they will stop you and you will not fulfill whatever it is that God desired for you to fulfill. And if you don't fulfill it, you will not be answerable to people, you will only be answerable to God. And that is what matters most. And that is what should matter most to you and to your life, to your ministry, to whatever it is you do. If it's a marriage, if it's a relationship you're in, if it's a business you're doing, if it's a job that you've been employed, you've got to know that at the end of the day, at the end of life or at the end of the world, you will be answerable not to other people, but to God. And recently I was talking to someone and we were having this discussion and we were talking about, and I was telling them how my greatest worry is not whether I'll go to heaven or hell. My greatest worry is when I go, my greatest concern, not worry per se, but concern is when I go to heaven, what will God say to me? It's not about the questions I will ask God, as I have had many people say that I'm waiting to go. People say that they're waiting to go to heaven so that they can ask God questions. To me and for me, it's not about the questions that I have for God. My greatest concern are the questions that He will have for me. And so I don't want to find myself in a catch 22 situation where God is asking me one question and I don't have an answer for it. I want to be able, to be at a point where I can give an account of everything that I've done in life and all the places that I have had to repent in my life about bad things that maybe I've done, and also, to be able to be humble about the good things that I will have done. My worry is not about the legacy that I'm going to leave, or my concern is not about the legacy I'm going to leave when I leave this world. My greatest concern and my greatest aim, or what drives me, is what I shall, the next life that I will step into. And so, driven by this passion of eternity, driven by this passion of living with eternity in perspective, knowing that one day God will question me and I will stand before Him, uh, drives me. I'm not saying having a legacy is bad. No, 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 no. But if you live with eternity in perspective, then your legacy will sort itself out. It will be taken care of. Okay. And so we are obsessed in the world of today of the kind of life we are living and the kind of legacy we shall leave behind. Yet that is not the primary reason. That's not the primary driving factor for a believer. What should be driving you forward is not the legacy you are leaving behind. It is the life you are stepping into in eternity. How shall it be? And that's why when I bring these prophecies, I am not really concerned about the response of the people. My concern is the response of heaven. What is heaven saying about me? And when I get to eternity, will I be able to say to God that these are the words you gave me, and these are the words that I gave to the world? All right. So with that background in mind, I want us to get into this journey, into this theme, first thing that I'm going to do is review the prophecies that I have received in the past. And even as I review them, I will be pointing out uh, the ones that have been fulfilled and the ones that are being fulfilled and the ones that have not been fulfilled. So in the year 2019, in December, around December, the Lord spoke to me and gave me prophecies and told me of the things to come. Now, I posted these things on Facebook. I spoke them in the church, my home church that I go to in Kitengela in Kenya, a VFIM church, and I spoke them. And I remember I spoke these words in January 5th, the year 2020. That's last year. They were the first in my church. It's the first time I spoke these words publicly, and I also spoke them on a Facebook video live or Facebook live video that I did sometime later after January 5th, and I recorded it, and it's there on Cross Generation page on Facebook. If you want to refer that, go and check Cross Generation. Then after a while, I took the video on Facebook and posted it on YouTube. You can still check that video on YouTube at you can look for the page Cross Generation Network. Cross Generation is the ministry that God has given me, that I on whose platform I go to high schools and I go to churches. It's a faith-based organization, non-denominational organization that works with different churches and different organizations, all based on faith. All right, so I want to start. You can go verify that at your own time, and I pray that you'll be blessed. So last year, no, 2019, in the month of December, the Lord began speaking to me about the year 2020. This is now last year that has passed, but He spoke to me about 2020 and beyond. And when I say beyond, it's about 2020 to around 2022, right? And as I usually do when He speaks, I started writing. At first, the word came in no particular order, but I kept writing nevertheless. Below, I have summarized. Now, these are the prophecies. I have summarized the prophecies for the people. I also sent out these prophecies to some of our partners and friends. Some of my friends, I sent this, I put it on a PDF form and I sent it to some of my friends, just to prepare them and to ask them to keep praying. And so I summarized it, and I've been seeking clarification from the Lord in some areas. And therefore, I will keep updating it as the days go. It is my prayer that as you listen to this and as you read, if you are one of my friends that I sent it to, that you get a moment of intercession on behalf of the people and the nations of the world. All right. So to begin with the prophecies that are regarding to my home country of Kenya, and then at the end of it all, I had indicated some of the international prophecies that included the last year American election, between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Okay, now this is about Kenya. I saw Kenya slumping as if tired, like a man burdened with very heavy burdens. This is in 2020. That's what I saw Kenya. So Kenya at that time began a process of getting tired or carrying many burdens. So today, even as I speak to you, I think it's important to also mention the date for today so that you understand after how long I've spoken these prophecies. Today is March 17th, 2021. All right, today is it's a Thursday, March 17th, 2021. And this is what I'm talking about. Last year, in the year 2020, Kenya began a process of becoming overburdened. Right now, as I speak, the fuel in our nation has gone very high, and people are complaining because of the living expenses of our nation, and people are angry at the leadership of our nation of Kenya, and people are feeling betrayed. People are feeling overburdened by economically, and that is given. It was bound to happen. But then I wish we prayed enough, because then maybe this would not have happened. But the sad news is that there are no, the days that are coming are gonna be tougher and harder. So let's begin with politics, because I don't want to go into the economy, or maybe what I can do actually, let me go to the economy first, then I'm gonna come back to the politics. So in 2020, I saw, uh, point number one, the prophecy number one, the Kenyan economy as well as the world economy will be better for a time, then it will dip. And this will be affected by many events that will also affect the whole world. In 2020, in January, we had not known about coronavirus. So I did not mention coronavirus in this prophecy, but what I saw was the world economy going for a dip, right? Going down. And I saw many events happening across the world, affecting the whole world, which in turn affected the economies of the world. Number two, Kenyans will be angry. Many will revolt and riot. Now, this is still happening. This is in the process. It has not yet happened. People are angry, but they have not yet revolted and riot. But then, people in that process, we are still in that moment of the fulfillment of that prophecy. So it has not yet been fulfilled. It doesn't have to be fulfilled. People don't have to revolt and riot. Things can change, and that is the prayer that we are making. At the same time, I also saw, or heard these words: resign, resign. I hear many say, quit, quit. Some will quit and others will fall. So this is still in line with the anger of Kenyans about revolting and rioting, and people are shouting, resign, resign. I hear many people say, quit, quit. Some will quit and others will fall. These are about politicians and leaders that, will resign, quit, fall away from political office as time goes on. This has already happened in some cases, but then it is still in that process of continuity. So these are some of the prophecies that I'm saying are in continuity. Number three prophecy under the economy is, in the coming days, have liquid cash, because things will be tough and hard. All right? Have liquid cash, because things will be tough and hard. This prophecy, brothers and sisters, I have to keep reminding you. It was given to me in 2019 in December. I spoke it in January 2020, January 5th. Value of properties will go down, and it will be meaningless to invest in them. Buy properties to live in, not invest. I see hardship times ahead. Then prophecy number four, there will be many investment companies, insurance agencies, multinational corporations, and national corporations that will hit hard times. I saw many giants limping away, badly hit and wounded. All right, this prophecy number four in regards to the economy of Kenya. There will be many investment companies. I saw giants limping away. These are companies, organizations, non-governmental organizations that have been set in Kenya that will be so hit by the economic hardships that they will begin to walk away from Kenya, and some will fall by the wayside. Others will limp away and will move their headquarters and their operating operating offices and businesses to other countries across the world, or other countries in Africa. Number five, agricultural farms and job seeking agencies to rise. Now, with time, agriculture will begin to rise. Now, let's go back to prophecy number four of giants limping away. This is in the process of happening. This is some companies are in discussions right now, even as I speak, discussing on the way forward. Is Kenya still viable for us, or do we just get another country where we can set up our business? So this is still uh, continuing. Some of the countries that are being mentioned as favorable countries are South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, but then there is also a lot of this. Um, what do we call this one? There's a lot of. I'm trying to think of the right word to use because then I don't want to use the wrong word, and then people say I use the wrong one. But there's a lot of uncertainty uh, about South Africa. So there's all these discussions that are going on. Then number five, agricultural farms and job seeking agencies. So this is have to do with people who are seeking jobs. People will start seeking jobs abroad from Kenya. Okay, so people want to go away from this country. But those who walk in the Lord will receive their provision because heaven's economy does not dive. All right, those who seek the Lord, those who will walk in the Lord will receive their provision. That's what the prophecy is saying. Anyway. All right. So then number six in 2020, I saw that tourism will take a hit and we below. This has already happened in 2020. We didn't have any tourists due to coronavirus. Again, let me be very honest with you. I did not talk about coronavirus. All right. But I saw tourism going down in Kenya and it was at its lowest. Okay. So let's keep praying for that because then in the coming days, things are going to be tough. But if we pray, the Lord will make a way. All right. So then let's talk about the weather um, and how the weather will affect the nation. Remember 2020 and beyond. So maybe today, this year, next year, some areas will be affected by drought and famine in Kenya, and others will be affected by water. This still remains as a prophecy. All right. And this 2021, it was predicted again. It was prophesied again. I spoke it again. And I said, Kenya will experience extremes in their weather patterns. So you have to begin to pray, praying for the weather, because it will affect people in a very, very uh, big way. Number two, prophecy and the weather. There will be a phenomenon in Kenya that haven't been seen in a long time. And some of these things will be compared to biblical phenomena. But with much prayer, we will pray that this does not happen. It doesn't have to happen. So this hasn't happened, but it's brewing right now, even as I speak. It's brewing. Okay. This phenomenon that I'm talking about is brewing. Number three, farmers in some areas will complain of strange attacks on their farms. The attacks will come from strange worms. This has already happened in some parts of the country. But this 2021 and 2022, it will happen again. So keep praying for that. Number four, Kenya must preserve the environment no matter the cost. Okay, Kenya must preserve the environment no matter the cost. All right. So number on security, these are the stuff I saw. There will be an attack on Kenya from the east. Now, this has nothing to do with the common attacks that we talk about. The east. So this attack that came from China, all right, this vision has already been fulfilled. Number two, there will be international involvement in Kenyan affairs. Okay. Now, I had to put this under security because it threatens our security. Now, in the coming days, international community will begin to be involved in Kenyan affairs. And when I talk about Kenyan affairs, I'm talking about political and economical affairs. But I'm going to come back to that another time. Number three, uh, many areas in Kenya cities will suffer for lack of proper security. More people will begin to involve themselves in night watches to protect their families. This is still a prophecy. It remains a prophecy, and the time is near for this to begin to happen. Before, there will be, this was now in 2020 when the Al Shabaab wanted to keep attacking us. So there was some sustained attacks from Al Shabaab, unlike in the past. And so that has already been fulfilled, so I don't need to say it. Okay. So whatever has happened, I mean, like, I don't have to keep repeating it. And then we go to the prophecy in regards to the church. So a revival has been, number one, a revival has been prophesied in regards to Kenya. The early signs of the Kenyan revival will start manifesting in the coming days. And this remains as a prophecy. Yes, it will begin to manifest, but there are a few things that God is working on the underground. Okay, there are some weeds, some roots that have to be shaken and taken out, but then this will come in its time. Number two, prophecy in the church is that there will be a mighty visitation of God's grace for the remnant. A great shield for the righteous will be provided. Now, those who believe in God and those who walk in God and those who know that God is their shield and defense will be protected against all these things that I'm talking about, against economy, against security. The Lord Himself will put on a mighty, mighty visitation and put a shield around them. Okay, but then number three, at the same time, there will be an increase in deception within the church, but the Lord will shine His truth to those who will be listening. So the increase of deception is there, and it will continue to increase even on this day of March 17th, 2021. Going forward, there will be an increase in deception from the church, in the church, all right? And this will lead to the discrediting of many men of God and many teachings of the church among the heathens. Number four, there will be unknown names that will speak God's truth as God speaks it. Now, this was very interesting when I prophesied this because I didn't know what I was saying at that time. Again, let me say I don't have answers to these prophecies. I don't have all the answers. Sometimes that's why I said at the beginning that there are some of them that I'm still seeking clarification. But at that time, when I said this number four about the church, I had no idea what that meant. What I thought in my mind was that there's going to be a few young people or older people or people who are unknown, virtually. They have no fame, no name, um, no connections, who will come from nowhere and speak God's truth as God speaks it. And I began to wonder, how then shall we hear them? How shall we know them? And then, to my surprise, Corona happens, and suddenly everyone is on social media, everyone is on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, preaching, prophesying, speaking God's truth as God speaks it. It's like suddenly there was this opening for everyone who's been denied a platform, or everyone who's had a platform, to get a platform on social media and just speak the word as they see it. And it was very fulfilling, and very satisfying to see people who are very gifted coming out to speak these things. And so that prophecy has been fulfilled, and it will continue to be fulfilled. Then number five, I spoke and said, there will be death in the church, horrifying. Some will be put to sword by their own, others will die out of natural causes. The church will get into a time of mourning. So I said that sometime, that was in 2020. On the same day, that January 5th, that I spoke these words, a pastor in Mombasa walks on his pulpit, stabs his wife, and then puts the knife on his neck and commits suicide. It was bad. It was horrifying. But here are several prophecies. So there will be death in the church, horrifying. That is one. Two, some will be put to the sword by their own. That is the second one combined with the one. And then others will die out of natural causes. All right. And the church will get into a time of mourning. Even right now, as I speak on this 17th March 2021, the church is in mourning. The church in Kenya is in mourning. We've lost several people, several key bishops and and pastors, very influential people, have died out of different reasons, some natural causes, and so the church has gotten into a time of mourning. This prophecy is being fulfilled right now, even as I speak, and it will continue to be fulfilled for the coming days. Number six, in regards to corruption in the church, there will be exposure. Some ministries will collapse at the weight of corruption scandals. Some churches will come down. And then I saw the clergy in court. Now, I don't know whether the clergy was in court being taken to court or they were taking someone to court, but I just saw the clergy in court. These are some of the things that I have to, seek clarification. And I also saw that some will split into small groups, others will fade from the limelight, and others will be forgotten, erased from people's memories. So then the Lord spoke to me about education system, and I said that number one, the education system in our country will be used to advance demonic agendas in the hope of brainwashing young minds toward the demonic agendas. Now, I'm still searching what these agendas could be. Right. Number two, I saw books teaching vile things being distributed in schools to lead our children into vanity. So we've got to pray against novels, against novels that are planned to bring a certain agenda against the minds of these young people. And also we have to pray against books being stocked in schools, that books that don't really help our kids. Number three, there will be events to promote the gay and abortion organized and funded from abroad in some Kenyan schools. So that's another prophecy. And number four, this coming 2 years, now this for people who are not in high school or primary school. Number four, this coming 2 years, enroll in higher education or professional courses. For a time is coming when favor will tilt towards those who have the training. Okay, pursue education and knowledge. This coming years, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Number five, all parents must get involved in their children's affairs to know what they are learning. So I spoke this again. I didn't know what I was saying. I just knew this is what God wanted me to say. And earlier this year, we witnessed a case of this young man who went out and killed his entire family except two people. Killed his mom, killed his dad, killed his brother, killed his sister, and then only two girls survived because on that day they had reported back to school. When arrested, he was asked why he did what he did, and he said he had read it in a novel. So please keep praying. And parents, if you're listening to me, because one of the greatest challenges we're facing today as a nation is the lack of parenting. All right. So, parents, I understand you have a lot of work. I understand you have to provide for your kids. But at the same time, you've got to understand that your child is a reflection of who you are. If your child turns out bad, then they are reflecting on you. It means there's something that you did wrong while you are raising this child. So it is your responsibility. It is the responsibility that God will ask of you. What did you raise? What kind of a person did you raise? So be careful, parents, and please take this word very, very seriously. Now, I also got a prophecy about the media. Don't worry, we'll come to politics. I know many of you are waiting for the political word, but then we talk about media. Okay, and I have three things that I want to say or that I said. Number one, there will be a decrease of good morals. We will see things in our televisions that are provocative and are meant to shape an immoral mindset among the people. Now, even as I speak this, right now there's a case going on between this young man called Eric Omondi and the Kenya Film and Classification Board. All right. So Eric Omondi has been advancing an agenda, in my thinking, that is meant to corrupt uh, the mindset of young people or people who watch the show. And so the Kenya Film Classification Board has decided to take action. Right. So there's a decrease in of good morals. There are no morals nowadays in the media. And so there are people who are defending the young man, there are people who are defending the KFCB, but God has his own way. Number two, those tasked with controlling content will be attacked. They must be vigilant that no blame against them will hold water. Now, KFCB is chaired by a believer, Christian, a man that from a distance I respect. I don't know him, and I'm sure he doesn't know me, but I pray for him because there's going to be accusations, blame that will come against him and against the board. So I pray that these things will not hold any water and they will not discredit him in any way. And that I pray that he will continue to do the good job that he's doing. Number three, radio and television will be used to advance an immoral agenda, but God will move with his spirit into this radio and television. Though some will deny the Lord, others will come to know him. One of the things, I will not mention these guys' names, but I saw, I think, three radio personalities that will come to Christ and they will change um, the entire conversations on radio. Okay, three personalities. Two of them, I think one is on radio still. Another one is doing some stuff that are not really nice and not really godly. And the other one is doing, I can call it, very confused things. I don't want to mention their names because then the Lord knows them and He will bring them. And when they come, then the Lord will reveal it to us. Okay? Now let's talk about the Supreme Court in Kenya today. Now, the Supreme Court, I said, watch the Supreme Court. It is the new political battlefront that will lead to great paralysis. So please pray, 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 pray. For those who pray, pray. When I say these things, remember there was no crisis in the Supreme Court. Everything was working. Now, as I speak again, this prophecy, we don't have a chief justice because the one was there, his term came to an end, and now we have an acting chief justice. And I have no idea what's happening. I don't know whether they're interviewing. The truth is, I haven't watched news in like 2 or 3 months, and so I pray that they're doing their job. I rarely watch news anyway, because I have an opinion about news that we watch what someone has decided or dictated for us to watch. Okay, that's what I think. I don't think the media is as transparent as they would like us to believe. But that is my opinion. That's not a prophecy. It's my own personal opinion, and I could be very, very wrong, but I still hold it. All right. So I haven't watched news, and if so what the Supreme Court pray. It is a new political battlefront that will lead to great paralysis in our nation. And then prophecy number two is plans to sabotage the nation using the Supreme Court. I only heard the word sabotage. I have no idea how these plans are gonna work, if at all they're there. But I'm asking guys to pray. Okay, this is for believers only. So please pray for the Supreme Court. The number three thing is that religion will be a main issue in the appointment of a new CJ. That is, if we get to appoint a new CJ. If we get to, then religion will also be a main issue, right? And so there are plans also to use the courts, lower courts, to pass agendas that are against the values of God in our nation. Okay, so that has to do with um, the court. Let's go to uh, some international news. Okay, not international news, international uh, prophecies. Well, they're news from heaven, and so we're gonna read them. And so, first of all, I talked about Sudan. So I said, let's pray for Sudan. These are now international countries. So I'm not gonna go into details because I do not know much, and I don't want to mislead people. I don't want to say something that is not right. So we pray for the peace of Sudan. Okay, both Sudan, the North Sudan, Sudan and the South Sudan. We pray for their peace. It is very important to keep praying for the peace of nations. The nations need us. And what I've learned is that transitions are difficult. And so it is as if Sudan is between two walls, and these two walls are closing in, threatening to crush them. So I also talked about America. America, I said, prophecy number 2 is that America is at the center of God's plan for the end time. But in the course of time, America will be removed from its height. The process of that removal has begun. America will fade, but not now. Not now. Please understand, not now. This will happen with time. Number 3, since it was 2019, in 2020, January, as I spoke this, there was to be an election in November in 2020 in America, which happened. And these are the words I said: pray for the American elections. They shall have more controversy than before. It shall be a heated time in the American elections. And I also talked about Mike Pence to play a greater role in American politics. They will complain that he's too silent, not authoritative enough, but they will wonder about his wisdom. So this happened. Mike Pence played his role, and that's the past. Then number 4, I spoke again about America and said America will become a deeply divided nation after the elections, a civil war times magnitude of division. It will be a division that will lead some to renounce their American citizenship. Others will fight their own nation from within. The funny thing about this prophecy is that even as I spoke it, I didn't understand totally and completely the American election and the system and how it works. I've never been interested, honestly. So I knew about the 270 mark, about the college, but I didn't understand it. I didn't get it. And so my friend, Pastor Joshua, was explaining to me how it works, and I still didn't get it. But it's not my nation, so I didn't really care. And so one of the words that came forward, not forward, that's not an English word, but one of the things that came forward was the word civil war. I remember watching CNN that time, and they were using this word civil war, civil war. And when these guys occupied Capitol Hill, and there was a civil war, a Confederate flag that was raised for the first time, and there was this magnitude, civil war times magnitude of division. When I say these words, I couldn't believe it. When I saw it on TV, I was like, oh my goodness gracious, this is happening. And so there are people who are still fighting right now, even as we talk, from their own nation, from within. I also saw on Twitter some people are saying they're going to renounce their American citizenship. I don't know how that went, but America was more divided. It was deeply divided after the election. And then number 5, I heard the words recount and assassination in regards to that same election. Okay, so I had people say recount, 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 and this played a lot. If you watched and followed these elections, this played a lot. Now remember again, These are prophecies that I have already talked about. I have already spoken them. So if you want evidence, because now we are living in a world of evidence that I have already prophesied about this, you can go to YouTube or you can go to Facebook and Facebook Live. You watch the video on Facebook page Cross Generation, and everything is there. I prophesied this in January of 2020 before it even happened. Now, number 6, I talked about Iran. There are more events to play out in Iran, and Iran will continue to be on the headlines for a while. There will be calls for regime change. Again, I have not watched news to find out what's happening in Iran, but this one is not going away anytime soon. Okay. So then I talked about a few other things that I said pray for California, and I said pray for Gabon, political transitions in Gabon and instability. I saw that, and I also said pray for South Africa. South Africa. So South Africa, there are tough times coming toward South Africa. I said that in 2020 in January. And I said agitation from the masses. The masses are getting agitated and frustrated. Agitation and frustration. Then there's going to be a rise of witchcraft in South Africa, and murder. Increase in suicides also in South Africa. So you have to begin to pray for South Africa. Now, I love South Africa and I love South Africans. And one of the things that I really admire about South Africa is, the beauty of South Africa, the wonderful, what they call the rainbow nation. And as I was reading I think the last book I read last year, 2020, was The Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. Powerful book. And I purposed to finish that book before the year ended. And so I remember on 31st of that of December, I was with that book, and I made sure I finished it before the year came to an end. And it's a powerful book. And Nelson Mandela talks about his story and how he fought for South Africa. And so I pray for this nation that it will not go to the dogs. In other words, what I mean is that it will not go to waste with all its wealth, with all its power, with all its strength, that South Africa will rise again. All right. So I talked about Nigeria, and I said, pray for the Nigerian government to complete its term and its job. I spoke about tension in Nigeria, and I said every man wants power, evil men want power. And I said the church in Nigeria should turn to God and pray. The interesting thing is that there were so many events that happened in Nigeria and will continue to happen in Nigeria. And so I also urge you, brothers and sisters, to keep praying for this nation of Nigeria. I also love Nigerians. I have some Nigerian friends, and I love their aggression, especially in the work of God. I mean, these guys are just gifted, seriously gifted. And so I pray for them, and I ask that we all pray for Nigeria, that the Almighty God will begin to open a door for Nigeria. All right. And then we talked about Egypt, and I said, pray for the Christians in Egypt because I saw persecution in Egypt. And I also said, pray for God's angel to intervene on behalf of God's people. Pray for uh, the economy of Egypt and their government. Pray for people who are full of hatred against Christians and are moving into the nation. So we're going to have to start praying for the stability, total stability of Egypt. Number 13, I say pray for Russia. I didn't mention anything beyond there. And then number 14, I saw illnesses and deaths of presidents. Let me repeat that, illnesses and deaths of presidents. And I said some will recover and some will succumb. All right. So I saw presidents getting sick, and I saw some of them dying. So even right now, as I speak, on the 17th of March 2021, there are some presidents or some leaders who are in hospital, uh, ill, and others have died. Okay. But then there are also others who have recovered from these illnesses. Now, so let me go back before I forget to the prophecy on politics in my nation of Kenya. All right, so that we're able to conclude. These are the prophecies that I received about Kenya in 2020, that will happen in 2021, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Number one prophecy was there will be political betrayals, the magnitude of which we have not seen. That has already happened and it is continuing to happen. Number two, I said that the ruling party, which is a Jubilee party, will be split into small groups. That has already begun happening and it is already split into smaller groups. Okay. And now the number three, so I said God's people must pray so that there be great exposure uh, that will leave the nation in deep shock at the length some were willing to go to stop God's will. This is in regard to a few people in government or very powerful people who will try to get themselves involved in what we call covert politics, including blood politics. And so they will do all this to try and stop um, the will of God from happening in the nation. Okay. Number four, there will be major political alignments and realignments with some members of the political class falling off and others coming up. This is continuing and it will continue. So keep watching. Stay on your television, read your newspapers, watch these things happen. It will unfold. A certain religion's hand will be seen in some instances as a push with an obsessive desire to control things. Now, I don't know which religion this is. It could be Christian, it could be Muslims, it could be whatever, but there's a religion's hand that will be seen in some instances as a push with an obsessive desire to control things. Number five, the Kenyan political temperatures will reach fever pitch, both for good and evil, but evil will be more peddled. This happened in last year, in 2020. It was bad. It's still happening now. It is bad. And it will continue to happen and it will be bad. It will continue to be bad. Number six, what was meant to unite the nation will divide the nation. It will be turned into a weapon of war. It will be termed as a vehicle for peace, but in truth, it is a vehicle to topple and cripple the nation. The vehicle of peace and prosperity, in quotes, will not bring what it promises. Instead, it will bring more anguish, pain, and death. Now, in 2020, as I was talking about this, I didn't know any plan to do, with BBI. Let me say this: BBI is an excellent idea. It's a beautiful idea, but then it's a beautiful idea that's wrapped up with something very fishy, something very selfish and greedy. And that is why, though it was meant to unite the nation, it will not unite the nation. And even if it goes through as they are pushing for it, it may not become what they hoped it will become. It may not bring peace. It may bring anguish, more anguish, and pain. So we have to be very careful. Even the politicians, the political leaders of our nation, of my nation, you've got to be very, very careful what you're telling us. Okay? You've got to be very careful. And I'm warning you now, and I'm saying this because I am a Kenyan and I am worried about the path that you guys as political leaders are taking us through. Number seven, there will be an increase in tribalism. Okay, the demon that has plagued Kenya since old times will rise again. But this time it will split tribes into what I call multi tribes. In other words, tribes will rise against their fellow tribesmen. The society will crack and many will fall through the cracks. The weeping of children will be heard, and women will wail as the men fall to sleep, never to rise again. This has already happened uh, just a little bit. Okay, Kenya has already tasted what is to come. But then the problem with Kenya is that Kenya has not learned from the tasting of what is to come. Okay, some time back, some people were killed in Moranga by their fellow tribesmen. In the days to come, if this is not tackled and sorted, it will be tough, it will be hard, it will be very, very difficult for this nation to move on and to move forward. Number eight, a significant political leader will fall ill. This illness is not a new thing to him. It is known by those closest to him, but it will become difficult to cover it anymore. This leader will need great and fervent prayers from the saints because his illness will disorganize political alliances and loyalties and disloyalties, which will in turn affect the stability of the nation. So today is 17th of March 2021, and I will not add anything to that statement or that prophecy. Number nine, corruption, more people to fall. In the fight against corruption, more political bigwigs will fall, but this will eventually cause a great rift between some politicians, which will lead to a fallout between key politicians, and this will bring division to the nation. Now, we have to be very careful to understand our priorities. Is our priority fighting corruption, or is our priority uniting the nation and keeping the nation from being divided? So we're going to have to tackle these two beasts, these two evil things together at the same time and make sure we fight corruption and at the same time make sure the nation remains united. Okay? Number 10, in that whole process, one after God's heart, a David is meant to rise. God has already anointed the next president and the next leadership of Kenya. And as long as there is prayer, God's will must come to pass. Without prayer, the enemy's plan will prevail. The one anointed is a Joshua, a militant one as well as one of faith. But, please understand, but will Kenya accept God's anointed one? But there will be great opposition to this one and great betrayal that will even put his or her life at risk. Some will say, let one die for the nation to be saved. But with much prayer, the tables will be turned and the enemies of God will take to heel. When they think they have this one cornered, then their world will be overturned and the deep state will no longer be deep. Now, this is a prophecy I spoke in 2020. I didn't have all these words, and you know what? I have nothing else to add to that. Okay. Number 11, fire and smoke, a dark day, a misty day, dark cloud hovering upon the nation. So we've got to intercede for God's intervention in political matters in Kenya, pray against all who oppose his will, God's will, pray for the political skies to clear so that the nation can stand upright, pray against a slump because Kenya is slumping. Brothers and sisters, these prophecies were brought to me between 26th and 30th December 2019. Some I did not understand until they happened. Others are yet to happen, and I am still seeking clarification for some. Yet, the Lord is still speaking about more things. I cannot say all now, but with time as the Lord leads, it shall be said. Let him who has an ear hear what the Spirit is saying. Thank you. The Lord bless you and have a wonderful, wonderful time. Please stay